This week we are going to talk about summarizing data. Okay, how can we summarize data and what is the value of summarizing data? Okay, we will go through different tools to summarize data and to get some insights from data. So we'll do average if and sum if and count if functions that allow you to average specific on specific condition, right? We will have a look at charting, so how to create charts to summarize your data visually. We will look at pivot tables, and we will see how pivot tables are very useful tools to quickly create reports, and I will talk a little bit more about that when we get to pivot tables, probably on Thursday, right? So we will be talking about lots of stuff. The main focus here is we will be using whatever we learned this week to summarize our data. Okay, so the goal is to summarize, or in statistical language, to describe our data. Okay, so this is a kind of descriptive analytics. Okay, we'll talk about that as we go on in today's class and on Thursday class. Okay, so the theme of this week is descriptive analytics, describing our data. How can we describe our data, right? So let's start. I'm going to open a new Excel file, and we'll jump right into it, right? So the first set of functions are used to summarize our data based on a criteria or a condition, right? In the last 2 weeks, we have been working with database functions. We looked at database functions, how database functions are used, and database functions can display the sum of values based on criteria, the average of values based on criteria, and so on. Okay. Today we are going to cover a set of functions that do very similar function. It does this exactly. It summarizes data and gives you some statistics about the data. Okay. So again, when we talked about statistical functions in Excel, we talked about functions like average, right? We talked about sum. We talked about max. We talked about count, and so on. Okay. And when we talked about database, yeah, I'm going to share my screen and make my Excel bigger right now. Okay. Okay. So these are basic. Where did they go? Yes, these are some basic Excel functions in Excel that are used to summarize data or describe our data, right? So by getting the average of my data, I know in the middle in what is the average of this data, so I can describe the data, I can understand what this data is, right? And so on. So then we went through database functions, and we looked at some functions like dmax, dsum, dmax, sorry, not dmax, the average, right? dsum, dmax, and dcount, right? So these functions were used in order to summarize data based on a criteria, and we saw how to use these functions. Today we are going to talk about another family of functions that also summarizes data based on criteria. And we will see the value of these functions in actions. How can we use these functions in real situations, and why they are, in some situations, they can be more useful than database functions. So today we are going to look at functions like average if or average ifs. Okay. Sum if, sum ifs. Okay, there is no dmax there. Count if and count ifs, right? So we look at another set of function that is used to describe our data or to summarize our data: the average if, sum if, and count if. Okay, so I will do an example, a quick example, and then we will jump into practice, right? And when I'm doing my example, I will show you how these family of functions can be very useful in your group project. This is very useful, especially in your group project. So using your group project as an example, I'm going to show you how to use these functions in real life, right? Right. So let's have a sheet. Let's call this sheet students. Okay, let's have some information about our students. Student name. Okay, and then age, and then course, and then grade. Okay, and then we can have John, or not. Let's not have grade. Let's not have course or grade. Let's just have student name and age. Adam. Okay, and then for the age, let's put 21, 20, 19, 20, and 18, right? So we have one sheet here with the student name and age, right? And then we have another sheet here with student name, okay, and grade, okay. So for example, let me copy those guys. All right, and let me insert. Okay, so we'll have course and year, okay, or let's have year and course. Right, and then for the year, John is year 1. Okay. 1, 3, and then again let's copy those. Don't need to do anything. I'm just going to show you how this works. Copy. Paste. 5. Not 5. There's no 5. 3. 2, 1, 3. And then let's put courses business 299. And let's scroll this all the way to Jose. And let's put business 308. Okay. And one more time. And let's put business 302. Okay, and for the grades, let's put some grades here. No, we want the grades to be numeric, not characters. Okay, so let's put 90, 85, 84. 95. Okay. 4. Okay? So this is a sheet that contains information about different courses. Let's say this is some college that each one only gets 3 courses. So these are the grades that each of the students got in 3 courses. So John in Business 299, year 1, he got a 90. Again, John in year 2, Business 308, he got an 88. And John in Business 302 in year 3, he got 94. Okay, so these are some courses that each student had, and the grades that he or she got in this course. Okay, now average if function, average if or count if or sum if, what they do is they summarize this data. So if I want to get the average of John over all courses, okay, if I want to get John's average over all courses, how do I do this? Right, I use the average if function over courses. Okay, so I do it by writing equals average if. Okay, and then the first option, the first thing is the range. What is the range that I am averaging, right? So I'm going to select go to sheet 3, and I'm going to select the grades. So I'm going to select all the grades. Sorry, not that. The first parameter is the condition, the column or the range of the condition. So the condition is very similar to the VLOOKUP function and the lookup function. The range is the column containing the values here. So I'm trying to average for each student, John, Adam, Tanya, Maria, Jose. So I'm going to select the column with student names here. Okay, so I'm going to select all the names of all the data on student name. So this is my range. Okay, so this is the criteria range that I have, the range that I have, comma. The criteria is the condition. How do I want to summarize my data? I want to summarize my data by the student name. So I'm going to click on the student name in the same row here. So John. Okay. And then comma. The last parameter is the column that contains the value I want to average. Okay, so it's called the average range. You can see it right there. So this contains the values of the grades that I want to average. So I'm going to go to sheet 3 and select the grades. Okay, and then close the parentheses. Okay, and this tells me that the average over all courses for John is 90.6, right? So let me do this one more time again. Let me make this bigger. All right. So our goal now is these are the names of the students. Let's say that you are working in the registrar office and you want to print out the transcripts or the final grade for each of these students. Okay, so you have the student names right here, and you have their grades in all the courses that they have been through. So Business 299, 308, 302, other courses, it doesn't matter. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to summarize the data for each of these students. I want the average for John over all courses. I want the average for Adam over all courses, and so on. Okay, so we use the average function, so equals average. Okay, sorry, average if. Okay, and then it takes 3 parameters. Average if take 3 parameters. The first parameter is the range. The range is the criteria range, the range, the column that we want to summarize on. Okay, so we want to summarize on the student name. Okay, so we go to courses and select the student names in courses. Okay, right. So the first parameter is the column that we will be summarizing on. Okay, then comma. The second parameter is the criteria. Okay, what values in this column? What values in this column should we summarize the data for? Right. We want to summarize the data for John for this row, we want to summarize the data for John. So I'm going to click John right like this. Okay. And then comma. And then the average range. What range do we need to average? So I'm going to go to courses and select the grades. Right? This becomes our average. Now, remember when we were working on the lookup functions, we need to fix the ranges to make sure we are always looking in the correct ranges. So I'm going to put $sign in this range, and okay, and in the final one in the courses. Okay, to make sure I'm looking through the whole table. Okay, to make sure I'm looking at through the whole table. So I need to use absolute referencing. Okay. And then I will drag this down. And you will see that this is the average grade for each of my students. Okay. The only thing changing here is the student name. Other than this, the ranges are constant. The ranges are the same because I used absolute references. Okay. Any questions about these guys? Any questions? You will get to practice, but about writing the function, the parameters of the function.
Just for the last part.
Yeah.
Could you do that one more time?
Using the absolute reference?
Yeah.
All right. So let me, I'm going to do it. Okay. So remember, if I, the problem here, guys, is if I don't fix the range, if I don't fix the range here, then each time I drag this down, I drag this function down, then the range will shrink. So let me show that to you better, okay? Because this is an important thing. So I'm going to write this function one more time. So equals average if, right? Again, the first thing is the range that I am summarizing on. So this is the range, comma. And then the criteria is I'm looking for this student, John. And then I'm averaging the grades. So I'm going to select the grades data. Okay. Now, if I do this and drag it down, okay, you will see that when I drag things down, you will see, I want you to look closely at the function here. Okay, look at the function. It's A2 to A16, for example. Okay. Now, when I look at the one next to it, after it, it's A3 to A17, D3 to D17. If I look down, it's A4 to A18, D4 to D18. So the range changes. Okay, it worked correctly in our case because the students are ordered. But if I change the order of the students, it's not going to work. So I want always to look in the same table. I want to keep summarizing the data in the same table, right? So if I want to keep using the same table, then I need to use absolute references here because I don't want to change the range I'm searching in, right? So I have to insert $sign or press F4 before and after the column names here. This is very important. If you forget this, then it's very likely that you are going to get the wrong results. Okay. Right. So fixing or using absolute references, make sure I'm using the same cell range. I'm using the same cell range for all my rows. Okay. I'm not changing this, which is important when you are moving data from one column to the other. Okay. Let's do one more. Let's do sum over all courses. Let's get the sum of grades over courses. Okay. So again, we have a sum if function, right? We select the range, same thing. The range is the criteria range, the range I'm going to use to summarize my data, which is the student names, okay, comma. And then the second parameter is the criteria. I'm looking for John, comma. And I'm doing the summation over the grades. So I'm summing up the grades. Okay. right? And again, I'm going to fix that. No, okay. So I'm going to fix the ranges. I won't touch the criteria itself because the criteria changes in each row, right? So I only change the table cells. Okay.
So should we use absolute referencing for all if functions?
For all average if function, yes, you should use it in the ranges. Okay, so the criteria itself does not need us to use the absolute references, but the ranges, because we want to keep searching in the same table, we have to fix the range, as you can see here, right? Yes. Right. So this is the sum of grades for.
Thank you.
No problem. So this is the sum of grades for all for John. So this is all the grades for John in all the courses. This is all the grades for Adam, the sum of all grades for Adam in all courses, and so on. Okay. Now let's do a count. Count is very useful, and we will be using count pretty much soon today. Okay. So if we use number of times or number of courses each student had. Okay, so using the count if, right? Now the count if is different. The count if only takes 2 parameters, not 3. Okay, so when you are writing the function, guys, it's very important to know what are the parameters of this function. Okay, so the count function takes only 2 parameters. The first one is the range. So we'll go to courses and select the column names, comma, and then the criteria, which is John again. And I'm going to fix this range. Okay, so John appeared in the other table 3 times, which means he took 3 courses. Okay, each student appeared 3 times, so it makes sense that each one of them has 3 courses they took, right? So the count if is the only function that takes 2 parameters, and again, this is for the same reason we selected any column when we were doing database functions, because it doesn't matter what column you select, you have the same data, right? So this is why count if does not take a 3rd parameter here, right? Now, a question that we need to answer is, how can we use this in real life? How can we use this in your group project, right? In your group project, you will have something like this. Okay, so let me have a new file. We'll come back to this file, but I just want to show you guys something. Right, you will have a sheet called customers, right, with something like customer ID, customer name, and address, whatever, depending on your work. And then at the end, you will have total purchases. Okay, so total purchases. Okay, and then in some sheet in your data, you will have something called transactions or sales, whatever you call it in your file. Let's call it transactions. Okay, the transactions will have something like invoice number, date, customer name, product, and price. Okay, right. So the transactions keep track of all the transactions that happen in your business. So whenever someone comes and buys something from your business, this transaction, this sales is recorded in the transaction sheet. Okay. Now, SUMIF is very powerful and very strong in linking sheets together. Okay. So because I have the customer name and the price here, I can go to customers and I can fill the total purchases by writing a SUMIF. So I can write equal SUMIF, and then I go to the transactions, select my customer names as the range, comma, and then select the customer name here as the criteria. So I'm looking for all the purchases done by this customer, comma, and then for the sum range, I'm going to select the prices here, right? So I will get nothing, of course, 0, there is nothing. But basically, this is how you can use the sum if or average if function in your tables to link sheets together. Remember, when I talked about the group project, I told you one of the most crucial, most important things that needs to be in your project is linking all your sheets together. I don't want to see independent sheets. I want them linked together. So using the if functions, not if functions, the summary if functions, like sum if, average if, and count if, you can easily combine different sheets together. Okay, same thing for employees. If you have an employees table and the transactions has another column for employees who sold this product, then you can also have a summary for the sales made by one employee. Yes, a question?
Did you want us to already link it in part 1?
No. Part 1, I don't need any functions or any links. All I need is like these names of the columns and maybe one line of data or something. There is no functions or anything in the first submission. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Right? This is something for the next submission. This is something to give you ideas on how to link your sheets later on. Okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
No problem. Right? Okay. So we have here average over courses, sum of grade over courses, and so on. Okay. So the problem with average if, sum if, and count if is that they only allow you to specify only one condition or one criteria. Okay. We have a different set of functions, okay, called average IFS, sum IFS, count IFS with an S at the end. So same function, but with an S at the end that allow you to specify multiple criteria. Okay. So I'm going to copy the student name and ages here. Copy. And I will paste them in a new sheet. Right. And let's say in the examples that we had here, we got the average over the whole years, over the 3 years of college, right? Or the sum over 3 years of college and so on. What if we want to get, let's call this something else, so questions 2. We want to get the average over year 1. Okay, sum over year 2. Okay. Count of courses taken by students in year 2 again. Okay, so how do we handle this? Now we have 2 conditions. We need to summarize the data for John and for year 1. We have here 2 conditions, not just one condition. It's not just for John. We want to summarize the data for John just for year 1. So the average if function will not work because now we have 2 criteria, the year and the student name, right? So how do we do this? We have another function called average IFS with an S at the end, okay? Now, this function is a little bit different in the parameters. So when you are writing the function, when you are selecting the appropriate function to use, make sure you are using the correct parameter. So here, the first parameter is the average range, the data we want to average, okay? So the first parameter will be the grades. So I will go to courses and select the grades. This is my first parameter, okay? Comma. And then criteria range 1, the first range I'm selecting is the student name. So I'm going to select student names like this, okay? And then comma, and then my criteria, like the first time I'm going to go students 2 and select the student name, okay, comma. My second criteria or my second condition is the year, so I'm going to select the years here, comma, and then I will set what is my criteria. What is the criteria itself? I'm looking for year 1, so I will put 1 as my criteria, and then I will close the parentheses. Okay, so the parameters are different in the average IFS function. The first parameter is the data that we are averaging, okay, and then the first criteria range, what is the first thing we are filtering our data on, or we are summarizing our data on, which is the name of the student, okay, and then the second, and then what is the criteria exactly, the name of the student, and then the second range, which is the year range, and then what year we are looking in, which is year 1. Okay, so John, for year 1 average is 90. Again, don't forget, I need to fix all these ranges, just the ranges. Okay, and then we can drag this down. What did I do wrong?
I don't think there's a year 1 for those students.
Yes, so for Adam, Tanya, and Jose, there is no year 1 for them. Let's check. Adam 2, Adam 3, and Adam 4. So there is no year 2, and this is why we got an average, an error right there, because there is no grades for them in year 1. Okay, so this is why we got this division by 0 error. Okay, so this error doesn't mean we did anything wrong. It means there is no grades for this student in that year. Okay, right. So let's get the sum over year 2 then. So equal sum IF and then S, and then we open parentheses. The first parameter again is the range with the we want to sum. So we want to sum the grades. So I'm going to select all my grades here, comma, right? And then the first criteria range is the student name, comma. And then the criteria for the student name, it needs to be the same student in the row, okay, comma. And then again, the second criteria range is the year. So I'm going to select the year, comma. And then I'm looking for year 2, so I'll put 2 and close the parentheses, right? And then press enter. 88 is the sum. So John's sum in year 2 is 88. Again, I'm going to make sure my ranges are absolute referenced. If you are using a PC, then pressing F4 will get this done for you guys. Okay. Okay, so everyone has grades except Jose, who does not have any year 2 courses. All right. I will change this a little bit. It said count of courses taken by students in year 2. I will make it count of courses taken by students after year 1. Okay, so how many courses they took after year 1? Okay, after year 1 means the year is greater than 1, and I want you to watch closely how I will write the criteria here. Huh? So equal count IFS, and then again, it doesn't matter. So start with the criteria range, the first criteria range. So the first criteria range is the student names, comma, and I'm looking for John, comma. And the second criteria range is the year. I will select the year, comma. Now, how do you write after the first year? The year means after the first year means years greater than 1, right? So how do you write years greater than 1 here. We open double quotations, right? And then put in greater than 1, okay? So this is how you specify a criteria when your criteria involves greater than or less than or text. If you have text or less than, greater than, and so on, you need to put them in double quotations like I did here, okay? So this COUNTIFs is searching for or counting the number of courses the student has taken with the student name appearing in the row, okay? And the year is greater than 1. Okay, now press enter. So John has 2 greater than 1. Maria has 1. And Adam and Tanya, they both have 3. Okay.